nasceu numa parte pobre da cidade, que inclusive é próxima do estádio Rei Pelé. Ele cresceu numa realidade em que os pais dele tinham poucas condições, infelizmente. Tem muitas histórias, assim, principalmente de falta de comida na família. Assim. Eles não tinham tantas condições financeiras. Os pais dele não queriam que ele jogasse futebol. Acho que por medo. Só que ele dava um jeito, ele tinha que pular o muro toda vez para jogar, e os meninos se juntavam para ajudar ele a pular esse muro, né? E aí ele sempre jogava, ele jogava no colégio, ele jogava na praia, ele jogava no bairro, ele jogava onde ele pudesse jogar, né? Firmino chamou muito interesse, já no CRB ele já era visto como uma promessa. Já havia interesse de times aqui do Brasil, né? Mas ele decidiu ir para o futebol da Alemanha. That the cop on shoots and know the best in the world is led by Firmino.
Funny enough, I played actually football myself in Brazil just a few years earlier on, and exactly in Santa Catarina, exactly the region, the league, the regional part of Brazil where Roberto played as a young kid. Yeah, actually, I just saw him playing a few times when he was extremely young, just when he came down into the academy, and there was something special about him. So when I got the CV, the papers, the video on the table. I was like, wow, I know that kid,
First and foremost, we were very hesitating because we didn't have the best experiences with Brazilian players in the past couple of years at Hoffenheim.
If you think about Brazilian players in Europe, mostly they're coming from the big clubs and from the big academies. And so there was a certain I wouldn't say the question mark, but there was some people in the club who weren't too sure about it. And Tanner, the sporting director, then went down and actually tried to watch him in a game, and he was on the bench.
I got to watch him in training, and that's where I saw that he is not the typical Brazilian who is very focused on himself and doing lots of fancy stuff with the ball.
Einer der Gründe, warum Hoffenheim ihn geholt hat, war der Manager damals von Hoffenheim, Ernst Tanner. Er war in Brasilien, hat ihn beobachtet und der hat gesagt, das Spielerische, ja, war gut, hat mich beeindruckt, aber was mich noch viel mehr beeindruckt hat, ist, der Trainer hat auf ihn eingeschimpft und der Junge hat einfach zugehört und hat nicht geschmollt, sondern hat einfach weitergemacht.
He took that criticism very calm and in a way and with the kind of a body language that he really wanted to learn and that literally told you, oh, that's an honest boy. We really got to look at him.
To be honest, the first time when I met Roberto, he was not speaking actually that much.
Ich war für ihn verantwortlich hier in dem Verein, für ihn zuständig, ihn zu unterstützen als Brasilianer.
You know how difficult it is, in particular with the language.
Das ist alles neue Kultur, alles neu hier für ihn in Deutschland.
You know, then the media in the beginning was also quite harsh because we had kind of a couple of flops from Brazil and they were after 2 months, they were already asking, is he the next one?
Wir waren nicht überrascht, als es hieß, oh, da kommt der nächste Brasilianer aus Deutschland. Hoffenheim hatte vorher schon unbekannte junge Brasilianer und jetzt kam ein 19-Jähriger, der viele Tore geschossen hat in der zweiten Liga. Wir waren gespannt auf ihn.
Er ist in Januar und das war für ihn natürlich damals ein bisschen kalt, als was er kennt.
Als er kam, gab es 2 Probleme. Zum einen, er kam im Winter, was sehr ungewöhnlich ist für einen Brasilianer. Und es gab zu der Zeit damals keinen Brasilianer mehr im Kader, was auch sehr ungewöhnlich war für Hoffenheim, die gerade ihren Trainer verloren hatten oder gewechselt hatten. Da gab es sehr viel Unruhe im Team und dementsprechend war es eigentlich nicht einfach für ihn der Start.
Er hat sich wohlgefühlt hier bei uns. Das war die ganze Umgebung hier, seine Freunde zu Hause oder seine Familie war sehr, sehr oft bei ihm. Er hat sich hier wohlgefühlt und da hat es sich dann geöffnet.
Very soon I get to know the real Roberto and he was so lovely. He immediately welcomed me well to the team and even though his German was not that good at that time, But yeah, you just felt the love from him and welcome you with warm-hearted.
Er war sehr freundlich, sehr glücklich. Er hat immer gestrahlt, war ja, mir von Anfang an sehr sympathisch.
Er wollte immer, dass jemand zusammen ist, mit ihm unterhalten, mal ein bisschen lachen. Und abends, wenn man frei hat oder so, dann hat er gesagt, komm, lass uns, wenn das Wetter schön ist, Sommer, lass uns mal grillen zu Hause. Entweder bei mir oder bei ihm. Und dann haben wir so ein Musikinstrumenten, hat er bestellt aus Brasilien. So, und dann haben wir so ein bisschen getrommelt da, ein bisschen, ja, Pagode. Musik, ja, und haben wir so ein bisschen gespielt, gesungen und dann haben wir gegessen. Das war immer herrlich, war immer schön, ja.
He was such a person with a lot of positive energy. Like in the locker room, he was the one who's creating a great atmosphere, and that was Roberto. And I just remember when we get to know each other better and better, I think weekly, I asked him for new Brazilian songs, to be honest. Yeah, because I like the kind of music, the vibes. So as I said, weekly I asked him for new songs because I was listening to them when I drove to training. So this was the Roberto Firmino impact on me, let's say it like that. I mean, we don't need to talk about the skills of Roberto Firmino. You guys know everything about him. You saw everything about him. So incredible player, amazing character, off and on the pitch. And this is how I would describe him as a leader, because when the opponent was leading, we was down 1-0, 2-0, you knew you could always count on Roberto to score 1, 2, 3 goals and yeah, to win the match for the team. He was really that skilled.
Ja, Roberto hat schon einen Unterschied gemacht. Ein Spieler, der extreme Qualität hat mit dem Ball, aber auch ein Brasilianer, der gegen den Ball gearbeitet hat, was man sagen muss, weil ich ja auch den einen oder anderen Brasilianer schon davor mal mitgespielt habe in der Mannschaft. Und er war sehr diszipliniert, er war natürlich, aber mit dem Ball war er ja, außerordentlich gut.
Ein freundlicher, netter Typ, sehr professionell. Der Verein hat gemerkt, wie er sehr professionell immer gearbeitet hat. Vor dem Training, er war immer pünktlich, er war vor dem Training immer im Kraftraum, hat selber seine Übungen gemacht. Danach ist er nicht gleich nach Hause, nach den Duschen, er ist hier geblieben, hat er noch ein bisschen für sich selber gearbeitet. Also das war sehr, sehr professionell. Und die anderen Spieler, die jungen Spieler, die bei uns damals waren, die haben sich immer nach ihm ein bisschen geschaut, weil Roberto war schon ein Begriff bei uns. Und er war immer fleißig und die Jungs haben viel von ihm abgucken können.
Und er war sehr fokussiert. Er wusste genau, was er will, wie er weiterkommen will. Er hat Hoffenheim als das gesehen, was es ist. Ein Ausbildungsverein, ein kleiner Verein, der für ihn den nächsten Schritt ermöglicht für die Seleção, für einen größeren Verein. Und das hat man eigentlich von Anfang an gemerkt, dass er sehr genau wusste, wie seine Karriere verlaufen könnte. Es gab schon circa ein Jahr bevor er ging, gab es schon die ersten Berichte. Eben Bayern München ist interessiert, Lyon war interessiert, hieß es, Vereine in Spanien, womöglich kleinere Vereine in England. Dementsprechend war man nicht wirklich überrascht, als die Vereine immer größer wurden, weil auch seine Leistungen.
It was very sad. I mean, I knew sooner or later he will leave the club because he was definitely for something bigger, let's say it like this, in the international football.
Ja, auf einer Seite war ich natürlich traurig, weil ich dann die Nähe von einem Freund, wir sind gute Freunde geworden, aus seiner Familie und zusammen mit meiner Familie, wir sind ja sehr, sehr, sehr nah gewesen. Und natürlich hat mich das, ich war traurig, war wie jeder von uns.
As a friend, as a character, in the locker room, off and on the pitch, we missed him a lot, and especially me, because we had a amazing relationship.
Aber natürlich war ich stolz danach. Also gleichzeitig war traurig, gleichzeitig war ich auch stolz, weil das war für ihn eine Belohnung für seine Arbeit, für seine Leistung, was er hier die 4 Jahre geleistet hat. Und wir waren alle hier stolz, ich mit meiner Familie auch. Wir waren sehr, sehr stolz, dass der nach Liverpool, so ein großer Verein, dass der das geschafft hat, dahin zu kommen. Und wir waren sicher, dass der dort sehr viel Erfolg haben würde. Und so ist auch gekommen.
Ich finde, es ist immer eine Riesenchance und, für den Spieler und man freut sich einfach, weil von Hoffenheim zu Liverpool, das ist schon geil. Und er hat sich das verdient. Was er sich da auch aufgebaut hat in Liverpool ist großartig. Und ja, wir haben uns alle einfach nur für ihn gefreut. Und umso schöner, dass er dort so lange eine schöne Zeit hatte.
Yeah, I mean, on one side you are sad, on the other side you are happy, because I think you shouldn't be. At this time I was not sad that it was over. I was actually happy that it happened and that I could share the locker room with him. And to yeah, the rest is, you know, the story.
It was almost Liverpool's second attempt at a post-Suarez rebuild, wasn't it? They'd sort of tried Markovic and, of course, Balotelli, he whose name shall not be mentioned, the previous summer to try and get things going after Suarez had gone. And this was, if you like, their second attempt to try and build a new forward line after Luis Suarez left.
It was a big project that summer, maybe one of the biggest ever, certainly in my time.
When you lose someone as important and as brilliant as Luis Suarez, you are always looking for the next one. And I think when you get linked with a South American, a Brazilian especially, you do start to wonder whether he can come in and fill that void and be as amazing as Suarez was.
It's interesting, you know, when you lose somebody of that quality, people just assume you can go and find, you know, the right replacement immediately. And often there are forces working against you. And you know, I remember Roberto's name coming up, and I mean, I have to be honest, I personally didn't know a lot about him.
The feeling was at the time when you looked into it, he was a very intelligent player. He was, you know, an international, a player of pedigree, and someone who Liverpool really wanted to sign because they went to such trouble to make sure they got the deal over the line before everybody else.
When I spoke to Ayre, he gave us like the sort of little itinerary that he'd been through to get the deal done. I think he did 4 flights, 3 countries and 2 hemispheres in the space of about like 36 hours.
Yeah, it was definitely, I got more air miles on the Roberto Firmino deal than any other, I think. I went back to Hoffenheim and I was figuring like, we're going to get this done today, tomorrow, and then I'll go home. And he said, look, you know, Roberto really likes to meet somebody from the club and to get it, you know, over the line. And I said, oh, no problem. Like, you know, does he live nearby? And he said, well, he does live nearby, but he's in Chile. He's in Santiago, Chile, playing for Brazil in the Copa America. I literally had my assistant, like secretary, run around trying to find flights from Frankfurt or somewhere to Santiago, Chile, which is not close. Met Roberto, had a good chat with him, and fortunately, I don't know how we did this, but somewhere in Santiago, Chile, we found a Liverpool shirt in a shop so that we could take the picture. And I remember sort of saying to this guy, do you know there's a sports shop, and what do you think the chances of them having a Liverpool shirt on? And he said, I doubt it very much, but we found one. So
it was the biggest player probably I'd ever known for the Twitter clamour of, you know, there was rumours that Liverpool were in and everyone was sort of really desperate to get him.
I found it was one of those sort of transfers that you knew that would grab everybody's attention because he was a bit mysterious. He could be a superstar. Nobody knew.
It became clear that Liverpool were getting him, and I remember the reaction being sort of off the scale at the time for the Echo.
So when Bobby first arrives at the club, what were your first impressions of him?
And you could see he had ability, definitely. Always smiling, really good energy about him. But I think it's difficult for any player when you move from another league, another country, language and culture and everything to try and get used to that and also then perform on top of that.
I think he found it a big challenge. The adjustments. He obviously it helped that Coutinho was here, and he had somebody, Lucas, as well, because that Latin group of players are very close.
Language, city, a new club, a big club. Expectations was so high for him. So different moments of our careers. Like everyone knows, I suffered a lot at the beginning, but I had to adapt. And of course, I tried to explain to him how difficult was the Premier League.
If you remember, Firmino had a quiet start at Liverpool. And I recall at the time, the old transfer committee, it was, well, I didn't buy him, they bought him, they didn't buy him.
I think at the time as well, obviously under Rodgers, we knew he wasn't the #1 target, which seemed strange in itself.
The first game that I really remember thinking about him was Arsenal away, and he played as a sort of, not like as a wing back, but he played sort of left side up out wide. That to me, I wasn't under the impression that was where he played. I think it's important to say as well, with the players at the time were looking at him and also wondering, what's he gonna do?
I can remember thinking about, especially when he was playing, I think he played on the left a little bit, he played more central. It was about finding a position that suited him the best.
He would have done whatever he was asked to do to play for the football club, but once he'd signed, you do go away and do your research and understand what this guy's got to offer, and he was a second striker or a false nine, not a right wing back. So yeah, you do question positions he played in early days under Brendan Rodgers.
Christian Benteke is easy to slot into a team, isn't he? You put him in as a number 9, you get crosses into the box. Firmino was a little bit more, the team had to be structured properly for him to shine. We all look back maybe at that, I think it was Old Trafford, where he ends up sort of playing sort of almost wing back on the left, I think it was. And you think, that was a strange situation. I mean, I subsequently found out, funny enough, that there was obviously pretty much a trade-off between the Benteke and the Firmino signings, that the club wanted Firmino, Rodgers wanted Benteke, so they said, we'll get both, and we'll let them race and see who comes out on top. That's not a good situation for any player to be put in. It's not a good situation for a manager to be put in.
His use of Firmino kind of underlined just how much he was struggling as Liverpool boss at the time.
Brendan wasn't in the best place at the time, was he? You know, they'd lost that previous season, the last game of the season, they'd lost to Stoke. He'd survived. I think a lot of people thought he shouldn't have survived. I think a lot of people were surprised. There was a lot of change at the club, but it did feel a little bit like Brendan was sort of the one that hadn't been made, but he was the next change to be made, really.
You know, there's obviously a group of people that don't want me here to be the manager. So, but certainly from my perspective, I look at it and, you know, in all competitions, you know, we've lost less games than Manchester City, Chelsea and Arsenal.
I think it's right to say that it was getting difficult towards the end. And I think he knew, once they'd lost at home to West Ham, there was the 3-0 defeat to West Ham, wasn't there? And Coutinho had been sent off. I remember that being a very pivotal day. And I remember the game against Aston Villa, when they won 3-2. And Brendan was very emotional after that game, in terms of the criticism that had been around.
What do you mean, Brendan, by a group that don't want me to be?
No, I think it's pretty clear, Andy, that, you know, because I think if you look, as I said, sometimes we haven't lost games or we have lost games and not performed well. But I think the hysteria around it is pretty clear that there's maybe something else going on from behind.
Brendan had 3 very good years with Liverpool. The 2013-14 season was as exciting as anybody seen, and I think it had reached its natural conclusion, really. And that's, you know, there was only one man that they ever wanted to come in and take over.
Yeah, when he first came in, the club was in a transitional moment. What struck me straight away probably wasn't Bobby himself, was how Klopp was once he signed. He kind of like knew he had this like diamond that was just no one had really seen yet, and he just knew straight. I remember in one of his meetings he said, we have this player like Bobby, you don't know how good he is yet.
I can always remember when Jurgen first came in, he was the one that really had seen him probably a lot before, with him being at Hoffenheim in Germany, and I can remember the gaffer obviously making a big thing around Bobby, and seeing people don't realise how good he is, and he said that in front of the lads in a meeting, and then really from that point I feel as though Bobby just went to another level.
It was interesting when we met Jurgen for the first time. I met him in New York, and one of the first things he ever said to me was like, "You got a really great player in Firmino." So I mean, it was almost like the first thing he mentioned about the squad was about Bobby.
So Jurgen seemed to know exactly what he had and how to utilise it and how to get the best out of him. And you know, from the word go, he became, you know, the centrepiece really to what Jurgen was trying to build.
When Jurgen walked through the door, I definitely seen a change in Bobby, even in training and everything, and you could see him, just like I said, just go to another level.
I remember after international break coming back, and we had City. I think the front three that day was Felipe, Bobby and me up top, and the Brazilians put on a show first half.
I remember that sort of start to the game being sort of one of those starts that we became accustomed to with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool team, especially when it was on its rise, that it was just that whirlwind. I think it was 3-0, 34, 35 minutes.
Yeah, it was a good game, really good game from Bobby. I think Phil as well. It looked, both of them just clicked, and it was like magic at times.
That was the first moment where it was like, wow.
Little back heel, Coutinho is onside, and a chance for Firmino to make it 3!
What a goal.
It's 3-0 for Liverpool. Firmino deserves that. He's been superb in this first half, and Liverpool catching City on the break.
As a Firmino sort of marker was something in itself, and obviously gets his first goal in that game as well. But that was the first real glimpse we had of Roberto Firmino becoming integral to Liverpool.
You could see Bobby started feeling at home. The confidence was there. He knew the manager backed him, trusted him, playing him in an area in the pitch where he felt free and comfortable.
And I remember that it being about the pressing really. It was about Lallana, Coutinho, Firmino winning the ball.
I was kind of just there in the moment, doing the running probably or something. You know, in that first season we made strides forwards, but then I took steps back along the way, and it was a transitional, it was part of the process, is what happens. Looking back now, you know, we got to the final of the Europa League in his first season, which of course there were signs there.
It was tough night, don't get us wrong, it was really tough to get that far and lose. But when you look back from the difference from when Jurgen come in to the end of that season and the journey that we've been on straight away within, what, 7 months or whatever it was pretty quick and pretty intense.
You know, Jurgen's had that. You've started very quickly to see the impact of him, both internally and externally. You know, I could feel the fan base, you know, the optimism in the fan base of well, we've got the right guy, he speaks our language.
They have to think that they can reach the expectations of all the other people, of all the fans, of all the press or whatever. So if somebody wants to help LFC, you have to change from doubter to believer. It's a very important thing.
We were just following Jurgen, really. We were just like puppies towards him, just kind of doing whatever he told us to do.
You could see the team was going in the right direction. The way Jurgen wanted to play was being implemented on the pitch, and we could sort of see positive signs. So I think it gave the players a bit of confidence, knowing that this is definitely the right way, we're going the right way, and maybe next season we can achieve something special.
To get the number 9 shirt, especially for Liverpool for a long time, is something special.
It's the Firmino role. You know, he redefines what number 9 can mean.
Firmino almost changed the mould.
He's popping up in all of these unexpected moments and places.
It's a genuinely great song.
Yeah, his song's amazing.
He rips 2-3 PSG players and buries it.
And that's the iconic picture.
For me, if I think about Bobby, that's one of the moments I think of.
That was probably my greatest individual moment, being a Liverpool fan.
The best feeling in the world.
It felt like the culmination of everything, but not just the culmination, the start.